Species in the galaxy isn't the biggest, the strongest, or the most advanced, but the most relentless. A species with no claws, no armor, but a mind that never quits and a heart that never backs down. This is not just another sci-fi tale. This is a story about humanity like you've never heard before. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful and wild journey into the stars, where curiosity becomes caution and enemies become something entirely unexpected. In the quiet curve of a gleaming star station that floated near the edge of a recently charted nebula, the diplomatic halls of the Galactic Assembly buzzed with quiet energy. Species from across dozens of worlds moved about in a graceful ballet of politics, science, and suspicion. Among them walked Ambassador Thornak of the Varnak Dominion, a towering figure covered in hardened scales, his crimson eyes scanning every corner with a predator's caution. His heavy tail made soft thuds against the polished floor, a sound that echoed just enough to remind everyone nearby of the power he carried within. Thornak didn't like wasting time. He didn't trust soft words, flowery peace treaties, or the weak creatures that relied on them. And of all things he didn't understand, one species bothered him more than any other: humans. He had heard whispers in closed meetings, rumors behind encrypted transmissions. Earth. Humans. Dangerous. Unpredictable. But whenever he pressed for more, he was met with vague warnings and evasive answers. So when envoy Mira Lorne from Earth's diplomatic wing requested a private session with him, Thornak accepted, not out of courtesy but out of deep curiosity. After all, what threat could a bipedal mammal with no natural weapons possibly pose to the might of the Varnak? He found her in the golden observation hall, standing alone beneath the vast dome of transparent alloy. Behind her, distant stars shimmered. Mira was small even by human standards, dressed in a simple black uniform marked with the emblem of the United Earth Accord. She turned as Thornak entered and offered him a calm, almost warm smile. "Ambassador Thornak," she said, her voice soft but steady. "Thank you for agreeing to speak." Thornak nodded once stiffly. "I'm told your kind is complex." "We are," she replied without flinching, "but perhaps not in the way most expect." He grunted, amused. "I've heard tales that you fought and defeated species far older, far stronger. It sounds more like a bedtime story than history." Mira stepped aside and motioned to a darkened doorway. "I could tell you stories, Ambassador, but I'd rather show you history." With a small nod, Thornak followed her down the corridor. They entered a quiet room lined with glowing panels and a low circular platform at its center. As Mira touched the interface, the lights dimmed and the holographic systems hummed to life. The air shimmered with a map of the galaxy. Thousands of glowing dots spun slowly, representing civilizations scattered across the stars. "This," Mira said, "is what the galaxy looked like 300 cycles ago, before humanity joined the wider community." Thornak's eyes narrowed. "So many stars, so many lives." She nodded. "Now watch what happens when humans are introduced." A small blue light appeared in an outer spiral arm of the galaxy, quiet and insignificant. Then Mira gave a command, and the map began to animate. The blue dot pulsed once, then again, then began to expand. Slowly at first, then with increasing speed. Civilizations that had stood for millennia shrank in the wake of its spread. Thornak stepped closer. "What is this?" "First contact. War. Survival," Mira said simply. "That blue light is us?" He turned to her, expression unreadable. "You defeated the Arvak coalition, the Creel hives, even the Orda supremacy. With what? Words? Negotiation?" "No," she said softly. "With necessity." He stared at her, skeptical. "You're small. No natural defenses. No great ships. No rare materials. What do you have?" She took a breath. "We adapt. Fast. Brutally. When we must." He looked back to the glowing galaxy, watching as the blue light spread like wildfire. "So you're parasites." Mira didn't blink. We're survivors. Of every extinction-level event our world threw at us, of ourselves, of our worst ideas. We learn fast and we don't stop. Ever. Thornak's jaw twitched. There was a silence then, broken only by the soft hum of the holograms. He had come, here expecting a diplomatic dance, a show of bravado, maybe some talk of trade or peace treaties. What he had walked into instead was a quiet warning, wrapped in politeness, delivered by a woman with tired eyes and a calm voice. "Why tell me this?" he asked finally. "Because your species just achieved deep space travel," Mira said. "And before you make the mistake others have made, before you test us, we want you to understand exactly what that could mean. And if we decide you're bluffing..." Mira smiled, but it wasn't a smile of joy. It was the smile of someone who had lived through too much to bother with threats. "Then I suggest you watch what happens next." As the hologram zoomed in again, showing grainy footage of a small human ship approaching a massive alien warfleet, Thornak felt the first real chill of doubt crawl up his armored spine. The humans had not come seeking dominance. They had not come boasting strength. They had come to explain what they were. And for the first time, Thornak wasn't sure if that made them friends or the most dangerous species he had ever met. The air inside the archive chamber was cooler than Thornak expected. Soft blue light glowed from the walls, reflecting off the polished floor and giving the whole room a calm, eerie feel. He stood beside Envoy Mira Lorne in silence, watching the star map reset to a single glowing dot. The position of Earth, long before it made its mark on the galaxy. There was something unsettling about the stillness, as though the galaxy itself had been holding its breath. "Computer," Mira said, her voice echoing slightly. "Play file series Delta 1. Start with Argon conflict." The holographic map rippled, then zoomed in. The calm before the storm. An unarmed human mining vessel drifted near the edge of a highly advanced empire known as the Argon Dominion. They were a proud race of crystalline intelligence, thinkers and builders, with fleets of massive ships and energy weapons that could level a city from orbit. They saw the mining vessel as a curiosity, a weak and unprotected target to study. They sent a cruiser to seize it. "That's where it began," Mira said. The map flickered, showing the ship's capture. The crew was taken without resistance. The Argons expected a peaceful analysis, maybe even an invitation to the galactic stage. But 3 weeks later, the Dominion's core worlds were hit by what seemed like chaos itself. One by one, their communication hubs went dark. Research stations exploded. Their defensive satellites failed without warning. Then the capital, once a shining example of galactic peace, was gone in a flash of light, vaporized from the inside out. Thornak squinted at the display. "That can't be right. A single human vessel?" Mira nodded. "They called it the Black Star Response. It wasn't the ship that did the damage, it was the people who came after. Not soldiers, engineers, programmers, and retired veterans, all with one goal. End the threat, whatever the cost." "But how?" Thornak demanded. "Even your weapons can't..." "They didn't use weapons," Mira interrupted. "They used the Dominion's own systems. Sabotaged infrastructure, hacked into energy cores, disrupted entire supply chains with nothing but code and calculation. Humans don't always hit hard. Sometimes they just pull the right wires." The next clip showed humans in control rooms, typing commands into alien terminals, reading languages they had never seen before. Thornak leaned forward. "How could they learn so fast?" Mira turned toward him. "Because they had to. Our survival has always depended on how quickly we can adapt to threats. No time to wait. No time to ask for help." The footage shifted again, now showing small human vessels hurtling through space. Not large warships, just fast, quiet, and unpredictable. They didn't follow standard formations. They didn't wait for orders. They moved in odd patterns, like wild animals with purpose, slipping through holes in sensor nets, bypassing defenses designed to counter traditional tactics. Thornak growled low. "This is madness, disorganized, illogical." "It worked," Mira said. That's the logic. He stepped back from the projection and crossed his arms. It still doesn't explain why you became such a threat. Most species learn and adapt. What makes humans different? Instead of answering, Mira issued another command. Computer Proxima files. Start with the incident footage. The map shifted again, this time focusing on a quiet star system with several planets and a single human research colony. The people there were scientists, families, and children. No weapons, no military defenses. But when a rogue fleet from the Valan Dominion attacked expecting no resistance, something unexpected happened. Thornak watched, stunned, as civilians turned into defenders. Footage showed a human mechanic converting a fusion welder into a pulse cannon. Children were seen setting traps in the forests. Entire neighborhoods transformed into barricaded strongholds. The humans did not retreat. They fought with kitchen knives, home-built explosives, and farming equipment. They didn't win by power, Mira said. They won by refusing to surrender. Your people train children to fight? Thornak asked, not hiding the disgust in his tone. No, she said softly. They train them to survive. There's a difference. He turned away from the display, struggling to understand what he was seeing. This is not strength. It's desperation. It's both, Mira said. That's what you haven't understood yet. Humans are at their most dangerous when they're pushed to the edge. Not because they become more powerful, but because they stop following the rules. Thornak stared at the now still image of the Proxima colony. A burned-out village, smoke rising in the background, and a human teenager, bloodied but unbroken, saluting a passing Federation vessel. There are hundreds of species stronger than us, Mira said behind him. But most stop when the battle gets too hard. Humans don't. They get creative. They get angry. And if you hurt them badly enough, they will make sure you never get the chance to do it again. Thornak didn't reply. He was watching now with new eyes, not just curiosity, but something deeper, concern. He had come here expecting a lecture. A warning, maybe. What he had seen instead was a truth that didn't care whether he liked it or not. Humans didn't win because they were better. They won because they refused to lose. And in a galaxy full of advanced civilizations and powerful war machines, that, he was beginning to realize, might be the most dangerous thing of all. The next day, Thornak returned to the archive chamber, earlier than planned. Sleep had evaded him. Images from the previous night flickered in his mind. The makeshift weapons, the burning villages, and the endless determination of human eyes. He needed answers, not the diplomatic kind, real ones. Mira Lorne was already waiting for him. She had the calm patience of someone who had answered hard questions too many times before. Without a word, she tapped the archive panel, and a new figure appeared. Professor Nalri, a respected biologist from the Nivari species. She was small and bright-eyed, her skin patterned with soft green spots that pulsed faintly as she spoke. I've been studying humanity for nearly a decade, Nalri began, her voice warm and clear. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Humans break the pattern. Thornak tilted his head. What pattern? Evolution, she said simply. Most intelligent species grow from dominance. Strong predators rise to the top. Others evolve to survive through defense, armor, venom, hiding. It's stable, predictable. And humans? Nalri smiled sadly. They're neither. They're persistence predators. Not strong, not fast, but tireless. They survive because they don't stop. She waved her hand, and the archive showed an ancient Earth landscape. Barefooted early humans chased animals across open plains. The prey was faster, stronger, but it collapsed long before the humans did. They would run for hours, sometimes days, Nalri explained. Not to catch up, just to outlast. Thornak's brow furrowed. They hunted by tiring things out? Exactly, she replied. They sweat to keep cool. They regulate body temperature better than most known species. It's inefficient in theory. In practice, it changed everything. The scene changed again, now showing humans building tools. Not just stone and wood, Simple, clever inventions that made work easier. Spears, wheels, ropes, then fire, then shelters. And still the same determined faces. They learned fast, Nalri continued. Because they had to. No fangs, no claws, just brains and time. Thornak stared at the images. But intelligence isn't rare. Dozens of species build tools. Yes, Nalri said. But humans do something more dangerous. They take failure personally. If something doesn't work, they don't give up. They try again. Then again. Until it breaks or bends. Mira stepped forward. That's the part most people misunderstand. Humanity isn't defined by violence. It's defined by stubbornness. Thornak crossed his arms. You're saying their greatest strength is being too foolish to quit? Nalri chuckled softly. Perhaps, but it's worked so far. The archive shifted once more, now showing wars from Earth's long, brutal history. Primitive battles turned into empires, then world wars, then space programs, technology that began as tools of destruction became the foundation for science, medicine, and spaceflight. You'll notice something interesting, Nalri pointed out. Almost every major breakthrough in human history came during or after a conflict. The graph changed, revealing a steep curve. Advances in energy, communication, transportation, all rising during periods of war. They evolved through chaos, Mira said. It's not ideal. It's not elegant, but it's effective. Thornak paced slowly, trying to wrap his mind around it. That's madness. War wastes resources, lives, time. Agreed, Nalri said. But humans have a strange ability to find purpose in it. They take destruction and use it as fuel. They grieve, then they build. The archive shifted again. A human hospital on a war-torn planet. Soldiers carrying wounded civilians. Scientists using battlefield data to improve treatments. They never stop moving forward, Mira said quietly, even when everything burns around them. Thornak looked up, his voice softer now. Is this instinct or choice? Nalri paused. That's the question we've debated for years. Some believe it's hardwired. Others say it's cultural. Stories passed down, teaching resilience. Maybe it's both. And what happens when there's no war? He asked. They find challenges elsewhere, Mira said. Climbing mountains, exploring oceans, solving puzzles. They seek difficulty like a moth seeks flame. Thornak shook his head slowly. You paint them as both dangerous and admirable. They are, Nalri said without hesitation. That's what makes them so hard to understand. He stared at the holograms, watching the faces change across generations. Fighters, thinkers, artists, rebels, all so different yet carrying the same spark in their eyes. Why would the Federation consider ending the quarantine? Thornak asked at last. You've just shown me how unpredictable they are, Mira answered this time. Because unpredictability isn't always a weakness, it means creativity, innovation, passion, traits that, if guided well, can build instead of destroy. Or destroy faster, Thornak muttered. True, Mira agreed. But after 70 cycles of observation, we've seen something else too. They're learning. Slowly, yes, but they are. Nalri smiled. And what's more, they want to be better. They try. That might be their most human trait of all. For a long moment, Thornak said nothing. His eyes were fixed on the projection of Earth, glowing softly in the holographic starscape. Not the brightest, not the biggest, but somehow different. Perhaps it wasn't madness after all. Perhaps it was a different kind of method. One that didn't follow the rules but made its own path, messy, loud, and terrifying, but maybe, just maybe, worth understanding. 3 months after his visit to the archives, Ambassador Thornak stood on the observation deck of his flagship, staring out into the dark silence of space. Stars blinked like distant thoughts, and in the center of it all hovered a single human vessel, sleek, silver, and quiet. It had arrived 7 minutes early. Thornak's tail twitched. That wasn't an accident. It was a message. Not a threat, but a reminder. Humans noticed everything and they never did anything without reason. His first officer stood beside him, scanning the readouts. The ship's engines have shut down, weapons offline. They're waiting. Good, Thornak replied. So, are we? He adjusted his stance, reminding himself of the posture that showed confidence but not aggression. This wasn't a battlefield. This was diplomacy. But after everything he had learned, Thornak no longer believed those two things were so different. He had come to this meeting prepared but not to intimidate. This time he was ready to understand. The screen blinked to life and the face of Admiral Julianne Crest appeared. Human, elderly by their standards. Her hair was streaked with silver, and the lines on her face spoke of years filled with choices, some wise, some difficult. She wore a simple dark uniform with no medals, no visible signs of rank. But her eyes, calm and sharp, told Thornak that she didn't need them. Ambassador Thornak, she said, her voice steady and respectful. On behalf of the United Earth Accord, I thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Thornak returned, the formal greeting of his people, a controlled series of movements involving tail, arms, and subtle shifts in posture. To his surprise, Admiral Crest mirrored the gesture perfectly. Not nearly, not closely. Perfectly. You studied our customs, Thornak said, blinking twice. For 70 years, she replied, smiling. We didn't waste the quarantine. We used it to learn. A younger human stepped into view carrying something that looked like a suit. Not a weapon, not armor, but a carefully designed environmental outfit tailored for Thornak's physiology. The Admiral gestured toward it. This is for you, Ambassador, she said. We understand your species requires higher methane levels than standard Federation environments provide. This suit regulates your atmosphere without releasing gases into the shared space. Thornak blinked slowly. Unnecessary. I can endure discomfort for diplomatic purposes. But you shouldn't have to, Admiral Crest replied. We created one for each of the Federation species. It was one of our early quarantine projects. Ways to show that we could solve problems for others, not just ourselves. Thornak walked forward and examined the suit through the screen. Every feature had been designed with care, even the minor details most species would overlook. It wasn't just practical, it was thoughtful. You developed this technology without ever meeting us, he said. We had data, environmental readings, public records, curiosity, she answered, and a desire to make a good first impression. Thornak studied her for a moment. That's a new kind of power. Admiral Crest tilted her head. Some still think power means building bigger weapons, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is care. He didn't reply immediately. Instead, he looked down at the suit again. He imagined how much time and effort it had taken to create. Not for advantage, not for manipulation, but to offer comfort. For a species that once responded to war with fire and fury, this was something entirely new. You've changed, he said softly. No, Crest corrected him. We've grown. The instincts are still there. The persistence. The fire. But now we try to use it differently. Thornak nodded. Your envoy showed me the truth. Your history, your pain, your chaos. But she also showed me your drive. And now, you show me kindness. We hope to earn trust, the Admiral said. Not by denying what we are, but by showing what else we can be. There was a long pause between them. Not uncomfortable. Just thoughtful. Two representatives of very different worlds meeting in the quiet between stars. Perhaps, Thornak said, we've misunderstood you not because you are dangerous, but because you are unpredictable. Crest smiled again. We get that a lot. He gave a slow, respectful nod. Then let's start with something predictable. Peace. And maybe partnership. I'd like that, she said. The call ended and Thornak turned to his crew. Prepare a shuttle. I'll meet them in person. Later, as he stepped into the specially made suit, he felt the air adjust around him. Perfect, stable, familiar. For the first time, he understood what Mira and the others had tried to explain. Humanity's true strength wasn't just in how they fought. It was in how they adapted, how they created, how they reached out. They had come through war, fear, and fire. But now, they were reaching forward, not with weapons, but with open hands. And in that moment, Thornak no longer saw them as a threat. He saw them as something far more rare in the galaxy. Potential.